Number 1. York Castle Museum. The York Castle Museum is home to one of the most infamous York ghost stories. In 1953, the museum caretaker, a Mr. Jonas, claimed to see a little man that he described as being dressed in Edwardian clothing. This happened shortly after Mr. Jonas and his wife had locked up the museum after closing and returned to their accommodation in the basement. As the pair settled down to relax, they heard footsteps in the museum above. Mr. Jonas went upstairs to check things out. It was then that he saw a man pacing the floor. Assuming the man had somehow gotten locked inside, he approached him and laid a hand on his shoulder, at which point he promptly disappeared. On another occasion, Mr. Jonas was with a colleague, again after the museum was closed, and the apparition made another appearance, this time witnessed by both men. From time to time, new reports surface, but there is no information about who this man might be or why he is hanging around in the museum. Number 2. Black Sheep Brewery, the last drop in. Centurion's Ghost Ale is certainly not the only ghost which has made itself known in the famous York Brewery. The York Brewery and meeting rooms is a labyrinth of rooms dating back to the 18th century. It has a colourful past, having once been a morgue and then a vicarage before becoming the brewery you see today. Staff often report hearing heavy footsteps, and the tables have a habit of moving around by themselves. As if that wasn't ghostly enough, a somewhat malevolent spirit stalks the halls. He is tall and thin, wearing a tall hat, and he makes it clear that he would rather not welcome anyone into what he sees as his building. He seems to enjoy shouting and slamming doors as he stomps around the property. Number 3. York Minster. As the largest Gothic cathedral in Northern Europe, York Minster is probably one of the most famous buildings in York. It is a breathtaking sight to behold. It is believed to date all the way back to 627. With such a long history behind the building, it is not a great surprise that York Minster is considered to be one of the most haunted places in York. One of the most frequently shared stories of ghostly goings-on in this atmospheric structure dates back to the 1820s, when 2 tour group members were separated from the crowd and found themselves wandering alone throughout the building. On their wanderings, they encountered a man in a naval uniform. The man approached the ladies and whispered in one of their ears before walking off. The story goes that he was actually the woman's brother, and they had made a pact that whoever died first had to come and tell the other if there really was an afterlife. After dying at sea, the brother returned to keep his promise to his sister. Aside from this tale of a secret sibling pact, another spirit said to haunt York Minster is a young man believed to be Dean Gale, who died in 1702, aged 26. His ghostly apparition has been reported sitting in the pews and listening to the sermons. Number 4. The Golden Fleece. The Golden Fleece takes great pride in its reputation as York's most haunted hostelry, something one bar manager dismissed as nothing but tall tales for the tourists when she was first hired. However, it was not long before she was eating her words. Just some of the things she saw, heard and felt at the Golden Fleece include an apparition moving across the bar before disappearing into the wall, the sound of footsteps, a bunch of keys rattling, and perhaps most chilling of all, ice-cold hand running up her spine. The bar manager is certainly not the only person to have encountered the ghostly inhabitants of the Golden Fleece. In fact, many guests report seeing a ghostly woman roaming the corridors and staircases in the early morning hours. Investigators believe that this is the spirit of Lady Alice Beckett, who was the wife of a former Lord Mayor of York who lived next door to the Golden Fleece, which was once a coaching inn. Another spirit that is sometimes spotted is that of a Canadian airman who fell to his death from the upper windows and is now a permanent haunting. Then of course, we could not forget One-Eyed Jack, who appears in the bottom bar in a 16th century red coat carrying a pistol. There are many more ghosts than what's been mentioned above. You'll have to pop in for a drink the next time you're in York. Number 5. Ye Olde Staring. One thing that York is certainly not short on is haunted pubs and alehouses. Our tour of the ghosts of York takes us to one of the most notoriously haunted pubs in York, Ye Olde Staring. This old coaching inn dates back to around 1644, although its cellars are thought to be much older. The cellars are the focal point for the hauntings here, as many people have reported hearing the screams of royalist soldiers. Historical records show that the cellars were used as a makeshift hospital for soldiers during the English Civil War. Some of the other paranormal activity linked to Olde Staring includes the old lady dressed in black who is often seen descending the staircase from the upper floors, and the two ghostly black cats who were seen around the bar. Local legend states that the cats were bricked up inside a pillar between the door and the bar. There are many reports of visitors bringing their dogs into the bar only for them to growl and snarl at the pillar. One dog even managed to knock himself out rushing at the pillar. The practice of bricking up cats in a building is a superstitious one found all across Yorkshire, which is said to protect a building against both fire and ill luck. Number 6. The Treasurer's House. Our next step on this whirlwind tour of haunted York leads us to the Treasurer's House, which sets the scene for one of the most famous York ghosts. It is said that back in 1953, a plumber called Harry Martindale was tasked with installing central heating in the cellars of the building. As he worked, he heard the sound of a horn off in the distance. He shrugged it off at first and continued working, but the horn grew louder and louder as if drawing closer. Then a phantom cart horse suddenly emerged from the cellar wall, followed by an entire legion of Roman soldiers, who he describes as looking like they had been cut off at the knees. It wasn't until some time after this event that he discovered that an old Roman road lies underneath the building, a good 15 inches below the cellar floor, which is why the soldiers had appeared to be on their knees. Since Harry's sighting, numerous others have seen the Roman soldiers, including staff members and other contractors. This location is on the list of the most haunted, if not listed number 1 as the most haunted house in York. Number 7. 35 Stonegate. Over the years, 35 Stonegate has been known as York's most haunted building. It is a building that is soaked in history and is certainly very atmospheric. The current house was built in 1482, although records show that some form of building has been on the site for at least 1,000 years. This house is said to have at least 14 different ghosts, but many believe there are many more. Many became active in the late 90s when the property was heavily renovated, suggesting the works stirred them up into action. One of the most documented spirits of 35 Stonegate is simply known as Tom, and he is seen to occupy the second floor. Number 8. Black Swan Inn. Located in the Peazone Green area of York, the Black Swan Inn is a half-timbered former private residence dating back to the 15th century. With such a long history, there are bound to be a few ghost stories to tell, at least. However, these are numerous at the Black Swan. One of the most common sightings here is of a workman in a bowler hat from the late 19th century. Described as a Charlie Chaplin type character, his apparition stands at the bar, tutting and fidgeting as if waiting for someone's arrival. As well as waiting at the bar, he's seen walking abruptly from room to room, and his presence often fades before your eyes. Another common sighting is of a young woman wearing a long white dress. She likes to stand at the bar in the back whilst gazing at the fireplace. Her appearance can change according to eyewitnesses, with her hair described as both long and glowing, and also black, long, and hiding her face. These are just 8 places in York that are reportedly haunted, and I dare you to visit them all if you're brave enough to visit York.